Our next speaker is a senior advisor on urban affairs. Oh, this stirred up a lot of emotion, the whole thing. Is a senior advisor on urban affairs in Rotterdam and in Amsterdam, which is quite special, of course. And he has written this book, City Without Fear of Heights, which is about the high-rise topology in Rotterdam. And he's going to talk to us about the deceptive simplicity of rooftop development. Can I get a big applause for Emiel Arends?
Thank you. So when Leon asked me to do one of the keynotes, it was like, okay, what can I say to you that you don't already know about rooftops that I know? Because you're a creative bunch of people here. You're doing rooftops, you live rooftops, you're collected in networks, you gather knowledge, you make rooftops, you design rooftops. But like one of our speakers before already said, if you look at the city from above, there are still a lot of rooftops that look a little bit like this. So I was thinking maybe I could add a little bit of input in how to get more roofs like this, or differently but usable. So imagine you standing here looking down those roofs and you think, oh, that's a really nice roof. It's free of space. You actually can do stuff on it. And you come up with a bunch of ideas and you think, let's go and fix this. So, and we did. We have a lot of roofs in Rotterdam that actually are, I'm going to trip here, I think, but I walk a lot, so I'm going to stand here. Or just use this one. Now, we got a lot of roofs. You've seen some on the tours today. We know a lot of roofs. You saw a lot of roofs. So this took effort to make. It's a municipality roof. And it took quite a lot of talking to actually get this done. In fact, but we have nature roofs in the city. We have energy roofs. I like this one very much because it's not just solar. It's also wind. And we got wind on more occasions, more places than just this one. But you actually can see this landscape very good. Which is really good, but it's not really usable roof, but is sustainable energy. So at least that's it. This is the one Leon referred to, the garden at the hospital. It's a really, really nice roof. Apart from seeing the skyline in a different way, which is really nice, it's also a place where you can gather, sit around, not just if you work there, but also if you're visiting there. And it also stores tons of water. So it's also a water roof, it's a green roof, it's a place where you can meet. Blue water roofs, we've got that too, mostly in combination with green. And we got roofs that you can use to top off. So I got two examples which most of you will know, but something you can do. And we got orange roofs. This one is maybe slightly familiar, but this is a playground of a primary school in the city center of Rotterdam. Just keep in mind that we are densifying the city center, not just by topping off buildings, but also building new buildings. We need about 7 primary schools within the limits of the city center. They'll need a playground of at least 700 square meters, and there isn't any space to do it. So the only logical solution is use roofs more for stuff like this. But this is the only example I could find in Rotterdam that we actually have a schoolyard on top of a building. And we got a lot of gray roofs. So I took this aerial picture of the city of Rotterdam, and you would love to see more green. You would love to see more uses of the buildings, but in fact, a lot of those buildings still are gray. So we haven't fully harnessed the potential of the city. And it's not that we don't know it. We did a lot of studies. This is a study we did with MVRDV a couple of years ago. We got about 18 kilometers of flat roofs in the city, which is quite a lot. So what if you do 10% of topping? That's like 15,000 houses. What if you do 45% with solar panels? That's over 1 million households for sustainable energy, stuff like this. So we actually know the potential of roofs. We all know the potential of roofs. The fun part is if you can combine those roofs and you can do water and you can do energy, you actually can have the amplifier on it. And we did some more studies. This is with solar architects. One is here in the front. It's about getting the top off buildings and look at the buildings in a more realistic way. So if you just cut down everything with wooden poles, and if you push down everything after 1985, where we used just the right amount of concrete for the buildings, or everything in between, say 1920, 1985, it's probably usable to top off buildings. Then you actually could do, if you look at zoning plan, stuff like this, all the works around it, you could add up to about 60,000 houses, which is really great. But it doesn't happen too much. We know it. So, and another one I need to mention is the study we did with the urbanisten. It's more of a climate, green stuff, but it's also about typology. If you have places that are high dense, if you build in a high density, maybe solar panels is not the way to go. The competition for space is fierce, and if you can use roofs for different stuff than just solar panels in places where you have a lot of people, that's not really intelligent. So this is a study about what should you do where in the city to actually optimize roofs. So, and there is a golden roof combination. You can do all stuff, all cool stuff. So this is also one of the studies we did. So you actually can see we have really good examples in the city. We have the studies, we have people like you all that actually are inventing and talking to each other and organizing stuff. So, what are we up to? We're about 120 acres of roofs that have been greened, have been topped, have been laid full with electricity, stuff like this. So 120 acres is about 250 football pitches. So that's quite a lot, but keep in mind we have 18 kilometers of square roofs. So if we are starting in 2001, which I also didn't know the bamboo construction, so 2001 all the way up to now, 120 acres is not that much. Question is, why not? So I picked out some things where I think it's really good. We got a Dutch building code, which states how you can build, what you can build, and there are some safety regulations in place. One of the things that is really interesting is that if you build up to a certain height represents safety. So if you go over 20 meters, you got extra safety regulations. So if you have like a 4-story building and you put some layers on top of that building, you got extra regulations, which means you need new staircases, maybe elevators. You need to not just build something on top of that roof, you have to adjust the building below as well, which is more or less financially kind of a stretch to build something on and then do the entire building itself. So those things aren't helping topping off buildings. So you look at a roof and you think, well, maybe this is a building where we could put another layer, and then safety regulations, building code regulations start to kick in, and it doesn't look that easy anymore. So you need to do a lot more extra. And this is especially for new buildings, BREEAM codes. Really good that we have them. So it stimulates people actually to make better, more sustainable buildings. But I have been told a green roof is about 2 points in the outstanding certification of buildings, which is nice that you get points for green roofs, but you get more points for heat cold storage on the ground, which is also accounting for, the points you need to get excellent or outstanding buildings. Point is, if a developer builds a building, that's really fine, but you can't make money from a green roof. you can make money off a heat storage. So if a developer is choosing what to get to the points of outstanding, he probably would not build a green roof if he's not obligated to do so. So that's maybe a reason why a lot of new buildings actually don't have the roofs you would expect them to have, seeing that we are all working, say, 25 years on roofs. Another thing is our housing associations, if I say it correctly in English, our VVA's, which are really good because, like the building code of the come back. This is more or less about new buildings, but we've got a lot of old buildings. And most of those buildings are owned by housing corporations, but a lot of them are owned by individual persons who are collected in a housing association. If you want to do something on a roof, you have to have the agreement of the entire housing association to do so. On a national level, there's a debate now going on. Should we change the rules of housing associations? 51% of the votes in favor. Should that be enough to do something on the roof? Which sounds like a really good idea because you need a 100% approval rate actually to do something on a roof. This is a brilliant plan in Rotterdam, drawn by someone who had an idea on the roof, but it didn't make it because some people in the housing association weren't in favor of the plan. So a lot of those plans stay where they are as a plan and not being realized. The other way around, if you make it a 51% approval rate of an housing association, and for instance you say we want solar panels on the roof, and everyone has to pay an additional 5,000 or 6,000 euros to get it done, you actually have some people that don't have the money that you get financial problems if you have 51% approval rate. So there is a slight problem with having those approval rates, but it's something we need to address. How do housing associations can get stuff like this past not having 100% approval rate? Another thing is parking. If you top buildings off, it sounds really easy. Yeah? So if you, the example in the back are a lot of houses, but say you do 2 layers, which is like 20, 25 houses, and you apply for a permit, one of the questions you will get is, where do you park your car? Because you've got 25 houses, we got car regulations in place, let's say 1 car per house, or a half a car, that's like 12, 13 people. And you're already doing this in places where there is a really high pressure on the parking spaces in the public domain. Chances are, it will fail on this, you know. And even if you get an permit to build, maybe the people in the neighborhood are starting to protest that there are extra parking spaces coming too, and so it's not really a good way to deal. What you could do as a municipality, say you could build here, but you don't get a parking permit for these houses, which sounds pretty good, but it's something you need to organize as a municipality actually to do so. Another thing, and this differs from city to city, is that if you add value to a building, you also add value to the ground. So what's happening in regular project development is that project developers give money for the added value to the municipality. And it works also if you top off buildings. So if you top off buildings, you add value. Some of the value stays in the building, but some of that value you have to give to the municipality. In general, that's the rule. And that we saw in the past that it actually made some plans impossible to get a financial scheme solid or approved to actually build this. So if we want to speed up mainstream and not doing pilots all over again, but actually want to do this stuff, we have to address these kinds of issues. Otherwise, it will be nice examples and pilots, stuff like this.
Yeah.
So if you're standing on a roof like this and you're looking down and there's a lot of things you can do with this roof, keep in mind that there are a lot of stuff you actually have to fix that's not in the public domain or not in the spatial domain. So if you're an architect and if you're an urban planner, or you're a creative person, you think, oh, you can do a lot with this. It actually means you need to know about finance, you need to know about legislation, you need to know about policies, you need to know about a lot of other stuff, let alone the technical installation of the building itself, to actually get it done. And then you have the housing association, stuff like this. So there are some stuff in the Dutch building code that we need to address if we want to speed up using roofs for green programs, stuff like this. There are some things we have to look into how housing association works on such a level that we actually can speed up processes and not shoot off nice examples of initiatives on roof by one vote, which is, if you think of it, kind of insane if you have a really big housing association. As a municipality, where I work for, you also need to address the fact that if you want to make stuff more feasible, maybe you have to do something about the way our financial system is in place right now. And don't take a portion of the money to get your ground value as we used to do. Parking regulations, something we as a municipality are in charge of, and we can actually decide to do stuff differently. But it's not just a spatial problem or a spatial creativity person who thinks of something. It actually is the entire package. So deceptive simplicity. If you look at this roof, you would say you can do a lot of stuff. And within 4 or 5 years later, you're still looking at the same roof and it looks the way it is because of legislation, policies, municipality, financial, technical, stuff like this. So we know this. And that's good. We all found stuff out. We did our studies. We have like the Dakendagen to get knowledge in. We got everything. So the next step, and it's not to be like having a depressing note. No, far from it. It's like we know this now. And we know this because we are doing this for 25 years. The next step is get all those barriers in place. Get answers to the barriers and make sure you take the barriers away to actually speed up the process of using roofs instead of having one pilot after another. And I think I'm at the end of my presentation, Liam.
Then I
have a question for you, of course, because now we know all this and we are positive about knowing this. Do we see any willingness at the municipality of Rotterdam and of Amsterdam to make that change? Do you see any hint of going into that direction? Because you talk to the alderman and all the people like that. Yeah, you do. And she has this really inspiring speech and saying, I want to, but when you're with her in the back room, is she still so enthusiastic?
Well, yes. If you talk about having like the smaller stuff placed on top, you know, like 4 or 5 houses or like 10 or 12, that's a little bit different than building 20, 30 or 50 or like buildings like the Phoenix where you build 200, 250 houses. The fact is, if you start scratching off the financial system, then where do you stop? So you actually have to rethink that really closely, because we all think that a project developer should pay money adding value to a ground if you build a big building. So where do you put the boundary? I think it's debatable, especially now the densification comes in, we have the roofs. We know it's a problem, but a financial problem is tricky, but we're talking about it. Parking, for instance, that's a lot easier. So we actually can say you can build extra houses, but you don't get any park permit on the street, but you can add program, then problem solved. But that means something for the real estate you build, especially if it's a commercial developer. It does something to the price, and if it doesn't get the value you think you have with a parking permit, it mostly do something with the business case of adding program. So we can do, I know the province is involved with coaches, I know the national government is involved, and we need those parties as well. So we as a municipality can do a lobby or can start a discussion to get like building code adjustments, stuff like this, what we actually need. But all those small barriers, and there are much more barriers, but if you add all those barriers up, we know now from all the pilots we did, we actually can make sure we get rid of them, have a workaround of have some options to bypass the barrier, to actually speed up the process of using roofs. But otherwise, we're standing here in 4, 5, 6 years again on the roof, and we have some really cool pilots, and then we don't have 18 hectares, but we got 22. And
we're still not good.
Yeah, and we still.
But
not
you're
getting
positive.
There. But I'm really positive because this helps. No.
Okay. Yeah.
Now,
I
knowing the
understand.
problem is half of the solution.
Yeah.
So to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emiel Arends.